Hi guys, my name is Christina and welcome to my channel and welcome to yet another episode of the podcast. Today is an exciting episode because here I will be starting work on chapter 9, and what I call starting work is that I'm starting official color work at this point. So now every time I will be touching the page, I will be working towards completion of the page, like making it completely done. And we're gonna go through this process today, and you guys gonna see how my working on my very first page for chapter 9 and how I'm setting everything up. You already saw that I set up some references on the left, and this is just standard procedure of what I'm doing. I'm always setting up references, and I have a whole video about how to use references. I'm gonna link it over here in the right hand corner. And so basically the idea of how I'm approaching doing this is, first of all, I want to decide of the just overall color scheme and just overall the color combination for the scene. And I used to do a little bit more extreme colors in the first chapters, but now I'm more gravitating towards colors that are more realistic. And for this particular chapter and for this particular scene, we're in the location that was shown in the comic before. So the background, as you can see me using, this is the background I was using in the end of chapter which one? And the end of chapter 4, I'm pretty much sure. So this is a Folian Valley, and there's a lake of fall that is in the middle of it. And if you guys watched the previous episode of the podcast, you know that this is exactly the place Kuroi is thinking of or remembering in the very last page of chapter 8. But basically, because this is the same location, and as I was talking in the previous episode, it's really important to make sure the reader understands that it is the same location, because you don't want to, you don't want to be too creative. You obviously want to be creative, and you obviously want to do things differently and not draw the same thing the same way again and again and again. But it's also kind of tricky because you kind of have to, so that the reader recognizes the same location, especially if this location being presented to the reader just a few times at this point, not a lot, and people don't yet know how to recognize the location yet. They don't know the special landmarks, the nature parts, or they don't know the characters pretty well. So this is kind of tricky parts. That's why I'm literally grabbing the background that I already created for this location, also for the nighttime, because it was appearing during the nighttime, and I'm basically redrawing it a little bit to make the nighttime look a little bit different, but I'm keeping the same mountains, like the same hills, the same vibe and the same feeling of the place, and I'm just drawing it a little bit different and use a little bit of different colors. You also saw I was grabbing another background and kind of combining the two. The background that I was grabbing was from previous chapter, from chapter 8, from the last scene, and this was kind of like the nightscape and the night sky from the Kuroi scene, and I also grabbed it because this is kind of the same night. Even though they are both Kuroi and Juria, the protagonists of this scene, are in different locations, they're still not too far apart. They are not too far apart enough that they kind of have not like similar weather, but like the feel of the night is similar. I wanted, like, they're not too crazy far apart. It's maybe a couple of cities away, but not insanely far distance. So I wanted to just kind of keep the same colors to indicate like that's happening in the same not like country, but like in the same area. I don't know, like maybe the same region. So that's kind of what I wanted to do, and I kind of wanted to combine the previous background that I did for this location with that colors in that sky. And how I usually like to do, as you guys see, I'm slowly working on the background, but as I'm working on the background, at the same time I'm kind of working on the first page. And the first page that I choose is not necessarily chronological. The first page, it can be, it often is actually, but not always. And I picked the first page to work on regarding on how does it match the background that I'm working on. Sometimes, first establishing page has a specific background, more wide, and for now the background that I'm using and the area of the background that I'm drawing is the most worked to fit this particular page. And I also wanted to make sure to start drawing both Juria and Dahaya. Dahaya is the lady in red. It's Dahaya's grandmother and the matron of the village. And Juria is the matron to be. She's the next kind of in line to manage this village as the best she can. So I drew Juria before for chapter 5 and for chapter 4 and actually for chapter 3. Juria made it in 3 chapters by this point. But I wanted to, like, this is something that I want to nail in the very beginning as soon as possible, is I want to kind of set how I want characters being drawn for this particular chapter. And it's not necessarily about how they look, it's more like the color combination, how the colors of their outfit, of their skin, of their hair, of their eyes just blend with the current let's say color combination for this scene. So this is something that I want to establish. So I typically draw the first background and one of the pages together. It's kind of like a collaborative process, and I just background a little bit if I need to, and I adjust my plans for how I want to draw pages if I need to. And my goal is obviously make sure like the page looking great, the background looking great, but one of the other goals is that everything kind of works together well, because this is what's going to contribute to everything looking good. So this is something that I really want to kind of synthesize and work together. And the classic thing, the bubbles are very important to me. When the bubble is kind of finalized, like I have the lines for the bubble, the feeling for the bubble, that's where things get serious in my head. So bubbles are also very important. I actually enjoy doing bubbles because I think they contribute a lot about composition, and how you break down the text for the bubbles contributes, I think, almost the rhythm of the page. It's like I think every bubble is kind of beats that you can create. So I don't know, bubbles for me is something essential. So as you can see, I will be jumping between the two after I finish kind of like trying on the first path of the background to kind of decided which kind of area of the background that I'm drawing I'm going to be using for this page or for this side. And I also threw on like the colors for the characters, like the base colors for the characters. And after this, I feel safe to return to the background itself and start working it through. And this is literally... it's a very relaxing process when I'm working on the background, but at the same time, it's used to be an easier process. Now I put way more energy into my backgrounds. They're not really backgrounds in the same that they don't get the attention. They get a lot of attention from me because this is the element that I will be reusing from page to page and throughout the whole scene. So to me, and sometimes, as you can see, guys, I'm reusing it throughout different chapters. So if it's the same location and kind of the same time of day. And to me, it is important to get backgrounds looking good. And what I started doing in chapter 8, I really bump up the quality of the background and made sure they're detailed, because again, they take so much space on the panel itself. So once you throw on the background, it's already create the level of finishing, like of how the page will look like when it's finished. So it makes sense for me to just draw a background in a very good quality once, and then every time I use it, it will bump up the quality of the page or of the panel. But at the same time, what I started doing in chapter 8 is that I started integrating my background a little bit different. I started using a lot of atmosphere, and I started using the focal length, and I just started using kind of like defocus on the background depending on how close the virtual comic camera is close to like the characters. If it is a close-up shot and we see a lot of the character, then I defocus the background quite a lot. And if the camera is far away, that I keep background in focus. So for this to work for the best, there are several things that I need to do. I really need to draw a lot of different details in the background, because when you blur something, like what I'm using for my defocus, I'm actually using like lens blur filter in Photoshop. And in order for lens filter, like any type of blur, because what blur does, it kind of kills the details, obviously. And in order, if you want to create nice background, even though it is blurred or / defocused, you want to put really good details in that background originally. So even though your background is going to be defocused, it still means that you have to put as many details as possible so that this defocused background that you're gonna be having is still interesting and makes your panel look beautiful. So that's why I'm really going full in on my backgrounds. And the thing with backgrounds, also recording, like I'm creating the whole video of the backgrounds alone for my Patreon, and I just there's a tier where I show a lot of behind the scenes that are not also spoilery. So the backgrounds is one of these. So I also was recording quite a lot of this background, and usually, if you guys are wondering, it takes me around 7 hours to finish one background, I would say. And this is the thing with the background. You can get a little bit frustrated when drawing something like a background because you're spending a lot of time drawing a very big image that you're not gonna be using like front on. So when the background is finished, nothing to show is finished. Kind of like after you finish the background, this is where the real work starts, and you're not really finishing anything for the chapter while you're working on the background. And finishing the background finishes nothing, like not page wise, it finishes no page. It contributes to pages being finished in the future, but it's a prep work. It's really detailed, very polished prep work. So for me, I have to constantly balance this fact. Like at the same time, I absolutely love drawing backgrounds. Like I get relaxed, and my day job, actually, I work in a visual effects for movies, and I work on the backgrounds. I create a lot of backgrounds for different scenes in different movies. Every time you see something pretty behind, or even you see the movie and you think it's a city behind and it's like practical, a lot of the times it is a matte painting. It's completely fake. It's something that people like me are doing. So to me, backgrounds is something that I absolutely love doing, especially if it's nature, like buildings, maybe not so much, but something like nature, like hills, like lakes, like oceans or clouds, I absolutely adore. But at the same time, like to me, I'm very goal-oriented person. I constantly keep thinking what is done, like on paper, like how much is done. And as I'm drawing background, like part of me gets a little bit nervous, like, Christina, you're doing this background, but nothing is kind of done. Like you can be spending days working on this background and no page will be finished during this day. And I think I mentioned on this channel several times before, but I'll repeat that I have kind of like a tracker. I have a file where I track how many pages, well, first of all, how many pages of the chapter is done. I have a list of all the pages that I have, and when the page is done, I put like done next to it, and then I can at a glance see how much percentage is done, because you cannot really see it even if you view your files, even with the preview, because if the icons are small, it's hard to tell if it's completely done or it's just like half done, like has processed, because they look colored still. So I have this where I have like all the pages, and I just put like done to each the done ones. But at the same time, I track how many pages I do per month, and I have like just title, the pages finished in June, the pages finished in July, and then I put like 1 or 2 and I update the number that is finished, and at the same time under the title I have exactly what pages I did finish. So this is very helpful for me, so that I don't stay like in the la la land a little bit, that I'm not just too enjoying drawing, that I'm still being productive and finishing. And for me, it's important to finish, like even in the bad, like if the month is really, really bad, like drawing is not going good, I have to finish at least 4 pages. Like this is the minimum. This is the speed with which I'm publishing my pages currently. I publish in a page per week, so I have to do 4 pages per month to make sure like I'm still keeping up. But I try to do way more, because my dream eventually is to switch to producing 2 pages per week. And obviously for this, I want to aim to make sure that I'm consistently producing 8 to 9 pages per month. It doesn't always happen. And it's like, that's why I think it's really good to track, because what I notice is it's not like consistently over the month, like from month to month. It's not really like, you cannot see, like I'm not doing the same amount each month. I think the cycle overall is like a year, how many pages I'm producing a year. That's something that is important to look like, or kind of to see, like, take all the months that you worked on and like take the amount of pages that you've done and divide it by amount of months that you worked. And then you see like the statistically, like the approximation of how much pages you get done per month. Because I have some months that are really, really productive. Like, for example, something is really flowing. I had 1 month that I finished 18 pages. There are some months where I finished like maybe 6 pages, like months. But I make up for it with other months. And some months it's okay, but some months there have been months that I finished only 2 pages, or there was a month when I finished 0 pages. And I knew why. Like, I allow myself to have this happen, and sometimes I have to have a real excuse, a real reason for this. For example, at one point, I told you guys on the channel that I was redrawing some older chapters from my comic, and I took this task like very seriously, and I wasn't mixing it with producing new pages. I was like, okay, I'm completely in the past now. I'm doing all these pages in the past, and I'm not moving forward with the comic until it's done. So I took 2 months, and during those 2 months, I was not doing any pages for the latest chapters. I was only doing all the pages that were old. And there was another month where I got a very big freelance, and I do freelance every time, like every month I have some sort of freelances, but this one was massive, and I knew that, and it was only lasting for 4 weeks, so it was fine. I was decided, okay, this month I'm going to sacrifice and I'm going to do this. That's why, for example, drawing so many pages 1 month is really good, because I can fall back on it, and I know that don't have to be stressing out, because first of all, I have so many pages ahead, and I already created a lot of the pages before. So yeah, a little bit of my scheduling stuff and how it works. And now I am starting to draw the character, and this is always like a little bit of a, like, not like a scary moment, but when I'm starting drawing a character for the first time for a particular chapter, especially if the character were not appearing in the previous chapter, like there was a gap between like chapter that this character appeared before and appearing now, and in this case there is a gap. The last time we saw Juria, it was in chapter 5, and now it's chapter 9, like obviously quite a lot of chapters like went by. And what usually happens is like a couple things, like my style changes during this time. So I did notice, like, I talked about the style change before, and I feel now it's not like changes in like a negative way. It changes in the way that it kind of stays kind of the same style, but the level of details goes up a little bit. So every time I'm getting back to drawing the character, it's almost, I see how the character is gonna look now. So it's kind of like a combination of me drawing the character that I knew and the character that I drew before, and this character obviously should look like themselves, but at the same time I know my style changed a little bit, and the level of details increased, and overall how I drew and like my overall quality of drawing improved. And this is kind of how I have to apply this new, like my change style of drawing a little bit and combine it with the way the character used to look before. And it's not like drawing a character, you know, guys, like when you draw a character, it's not only just making sure you get the eyes right, the eyebrows right, the color of like every element of their face right. It has something to do with the character vibe and the character energy and the impression the character gives, of like just the feeling of the character. It's really not only just the looks, it's like the emotion of the character. In the comic, you have a lot of character development, like not character, maybe character building or like characterizing of character by the way they look and by the way they react, all the small emotions in every single scene that they have. This is how you are able to establish who your character is and also make your character recognizable. So every time this situation happens, when I have to draw the same character again after a little break on working on this character, is just almost a test for me if I can capture the essence of this character again. Not only if I can get all the like proportions right, all the colors right, all the like other elements right. It's like I have to get the essence of the character right. And sometimes I have to fix some issues that I did in the previous chapters. Like, for example, I more vibe with how Juria looks in chapter 4. The references you see on the left is chapter 5 actually, and I'm not like, I picked this one. I mean, I like the eyes in there, like I'm vibing with the eyes. I'm not really vibing with the way I draw her, like a nose for her, and I'm not really vibing with the way like her, like the face shape. I think it's too round, and Juria's face is not too round. Like, she's not the kind of like the super skinny girl, but she is like, I wanted to have like a little bit more width to her, a little bit more, how to say, like sturdiness to her figure. Like Tsukai is more skinny and Juria is shorter, and she is a little bit bulky. Like, she's not like chubby by no means. This is not what I'm saying. It's more like she is more like sturdy. I don't know, like her figure, she's like a small sturdy girl. Like, this is the vibe that I wanted to give her. But I think in the screenshot that you see on the left, I went a little bit overboard, so I'm trying to bring her a little bit closer to the image of her that I have. So it's like, it's a weird balance all the time when you're drawing characters. I mean, it's super interesting. Like, this is something that I absolutely love, and the reason why I'm drawing comics is really because of this, my love for characters, people, for drawing people's faces and just drawing people's faces in different circumstances with different emotions. This is something like, I don't know, I'm just fascinated by people and how they look and how they portray emotion, how the face, like the features stay the same while the face of everybody is constantly moving, how to make sure everybody is kind of look like themselves. So this is something that constantly fascinates me, and this is why I create comics in the end rather than just draw books. I like drawing the visuals and the visual representations of the character. So, but yeah, and actually I'm really happy with how Julia is coming along. I always imagine her having those very calm eyes. So obviously she expresses emotions, and the vibe that I wanted to give her is always like the vibe of sturdiness, resolve, not resolve, like she's like decisive, she knows what she wants to do, but she also very obedient, and she always follows the rules that I establish. She respects the rules. She doesn't follow them because she just doesn't know how to do otherwise. She thinks they're right, and it's kind of part of her personality to just follow the rules that I established. And she's very like the right kind of quote unquote person. She's doing the right things, like society wise and the rules wise. She is the matron to be, so she is kind of like in training to be the ruler of this small village, and she's very responsible. And I wanted, like, she also like older than a lot of my main cast, like, okay, maybe not older, like I have older characters. I mean, she's older than both Kuroi and Tsukai, my other two protagonists. Like Tsukai is 16, 17, Kuroi is maybe 20, 22, 21, 22, and she is in her 30s actually. And I wanted, and she doesn't look like it, she's like a good looking lady, and I'm also approaching 30s, so nothing bad towards people in their 30s, but it's like she I wanted this kind of more age be in her eyes. I wanted her eyes to be more calm. I wanted her demeanor to be more like calm. Like she's more confident in what she's doing. She is more relaxed in what's happening, and if the problem arises, she is able to solve it. And you don't see like any panic in her face. You don't see like sometimes, like, she obviously gets surprised, she expresses emotions, but she never kind of like loses in any way. Like she is very competent person overall, like very mature, I would say. And one of the things, I wanted her eyes to look relaxed and more calm, like not relaxed, maybe calm. And even if she's like frowning, like here she is kind of a little bit like frowning, confused. She's like, what? But throughout this chapter, and throughout this scene, she would be like a little bit like not super happy. She's a little grumpy, and she will be surprised when she will be hearing news. You guys are gonna see, we're gonna be approaching the next pages, and yeah. But overall, I wanted her to have this very calm vibe. And also, since we're on the topic of Juria, I wanted to talk a little bit about her hair. And her hair is kind of important. It's kind of a little thing. Like, this is kind of something that I like putting about the characters without explaining. And we're going to see a little bit more about this, but I'm not like explaining it front and center. Like, it's something that's just happening, and it's up to the reader to connect the dots. But basically, her hair are red, and they're not naturally red. So in this world, on Silana, you either can be blonde or you can be like with black hair. Not even blonde. Like your hair either like white, like albino color hair, or your hair are black. And depending on the province that you come from, like the type of like location you're from, like there's small variation in the color of the hair. From the west, like color of the hair, like darker hair, a little bit lighter. They have a little bit of brown in it, but like they're still black hair. That Farakandu whose hair are white. For the ones who are from Eastern Province, when people have darker skin, they're more like yellow golden look. It's kind of like how you see like albino, like people of African descent who are albino, like you see like their hair is kind of like yellow. And this is kind of like the little things that you can see. But overall, for her as a northern, like, she's a Kondra, like this is her race. Her hair, like Kondra hair, are always black, like for every Kondra. and her hair, like we see in the story, are red. And I wanted not to have no explanation for this, but the thing is, Juria actually colors, like she dyes her hair herself. She uses one of the plant that can burn skin and everything. She uses to burn her own hair, and she basically burns the color out to get her hair looking red, like orange. And the thing is, I always wanted it to just be happening with no explanation. I always like think when I draw her, it's very important for me to make sure I draw her roots black, so it's not like she has like red hair growing from her scalp. They are growing black and they grow out, and the root's gonna be her natural color. And the reason why she's doing it is just, I don't think even if she's rationalizing it too much, but when you become a matron or we become a patron, like hair are important in the northern province. Hair represents freedom. So the way you like what you do with your hair, the hairstyles that you choose, they kind of show your status in the society and what you do. And matrons and patrons, all people in the position of management or leadership, they they completely cover their hair under the fabric. So the idea is like the more responsibility you have, the less of personal freedom you have. So you basically making decision not for yourself anymore, you're making decision for everybody, and whatever you do should be in service of people that you're doing. So that kind of represents that you don't have freedom per se. And Juria knows that this is where it's coming for her, and she knows that she eventually would become a matron. She's absolutely ready to take the responsibility. She knows that that's what she's gonna do, and she's completely cool with that. But I wanted to show kind of inside of her. There's a part of her that is a rebel, and this is a lot of stuff about her that she has like a very rich identity and her individuality that she potentially even hiding a little bit even from herself. And she wants to stand out, she wants to be her own person, and she wants to follow her own decisions. And that's kind of one of the conflict of this character in particular, because she has to decide between either just becoming a matron, just being a matron, and just taking this leadership role and just stay out of the story and just do what she's supposed to do, or kind of abandon who she was going to be all her life, but then finally realize who she is. And it's not, I don't want it to be a Disney story, kind of Disney princess kind of story. The thing is, what she wants to do is dangerous, and what she wants to do is in her mind is the right thing, but it's also very dangerous thing. It's like she kind of wants to be a Ned Stark type of thing, and she wants to get into things that are very nuanced and a lot of politics are involved, and she wants to do the right thing, and she wants to do it the right way, but she's potentially ready to do it the right way. Like, not like ready, she's like, maybe this thing is not supposed to be done the right way. There is no right way to solve the situation. It has to be a gray area. And I don't know, the character of Julia, I really love her. And she has to go through very difficult lessons of her own and to realize the cost of doing your own thing and stand out, and the cost of like believing in what's supposed to be done, even though society potentially as it is now, people as they think now are not ready to do it. So it's like how many challenges she has to overcome, and potentially how dangerous it can be, and what she can lose because of this, and what and the dangers are like, how much is she willing to sacrifice, basically. So this is a little bit talking about Juria. Like, now I'm back to drawing the background, and because this is, as I said, I'm jumping between the two and making sure kind of everything is synthesized. And it's kind of like the first, like the creating the feeling of the chapter and getting the hand of how the chapter is gonna look like, how the chapter is gonna feel like, or like the scene overall, not like maybe the chapter, but the scene. It's just making sure I get a good hold on and a good grasp on how it's supposed to look like, and just finding the identity of the chapter and just making sure that I'm happy with this. So yeah, that's basically what this video is about, you guys, and I'm very excited to finally start to work on chapter 9. I'm really excited for what's going to be in this chapter, like chapter 9, chapter 10. It's going to be a lot of exciting things, a lot of plot will be happening, and in this particular scene, like this scene starts like quote unquote boring, like very standard, but there's a lot of cool reveals that are going to be coming in this chapter later on. So now I finally get to play with the plot, not just I dealt for the first 7 chapters with the introduction stuff, maybe for the first 6, but now it's game on. So thank you so much, guys, for watching, and I hope to see you in my next one. Thank you so much, guys. Bye.